Imagine this, nearly 70 million Gen Z individuals live in the United States, over 20% of the population. And by 2025, they're going to make up about 27% of the workforce globally. Yet despite their growing influence, many leaders still struggle to truly see Gen Z. They're labeled as fragile, digital, hard to manage. But what if everything we think we know is only scratching the surface? Today on the Champion Forum podcast, we have an opportunity to move beyond myths and stereotypes and to discover what Gen Z can teach us.
This is the Champion Forum podcast with Jeff Hancher, the forum for leaders, champions, and dreamers.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. I have an amazing guest for us today. He is back for round 2 of the Champion Forum podcast, none other than Dr. Tim Elmore, who you may remember, he is the founder of Growing Leaders, which is an Atlanta-based nonprofit created to develop emerging leaders all around the world. His work grew out of 20 years of serving alongside Dr. John C. Maxwell. Tim has appeared in the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, USA Today. He's been featured on CNN's Headline News, Fox Business, and Fox and Friends to talk about leading multiple generations in the workplace. He's written over 35 books, including Habitudes, Images that Form Leadership Habits and Attitudes, 8 Paradoxes of Great Leadership, and a New Kind of Diversity. His latest book, The Future Begins with Z, 9 Strategies to Lead Generation Z as They Upset the Workplace, releases this fall of 2025. Tim Elmore, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you, my friend Jeff. I can hardly wait for this conversation. It's going to be fun.
My goodness, I have had a front row seat to some of your content and your creation. We had you here in Pittsburgh in front of an amazing group of leaders a couple weeks back, and I have to tell you, it's a resonating theme that has been in this group ever since. I've seen people even posting about it on socials. Tim, this is a front of the line, tip of the spear topic that you're addressing. So thank you for the work that you do.
Yeah, well, I tell you what's behind it, Jeff. I don't think I'm the only sage on this. In fact, I don't even think I am a sage, but I keep hearing so many employers or sports coaches saying, I don't understand these young adults today. And I'm sure they said that about us back in the day. Sure. But I'm telling you, we have got to figure this out. I'm hearing some employers go, I'm just waiting for the next generation following Gen Z. I can't figure these kids out. Well, we can't do that. That's not a path forward. So anyway, I've just determined to create a bit of an encyclopedia for us to really have a compass as we tread these waters. Yeah.
It's a real thing. And I think a lot of it is a little bit of myth. And I think it's a matter of understanding the audience and how to lead them well. And look, a lot has been written about this young generation. And I know from spending time from you and hearing your thoughts about this subject, you're a huge supporter. You're a huge advocate of Gen Z. What makes your book, The Future Begins with Z, what makes this different and perhaps even a little more timely?
Yeah. Well, thanks for asking that question. I think it is, and I'll tell you why. On the surface, it is easy for a manager or a leader to look at the externals on Gen Z and go, they're different. I don't like it. They don't seem to have a work ethic. They want to leave right at 5 o'clock or even earlier. They have mental health problems, those kinds of things. And we take a cursory look at them and we just say they're too different. I don't want to work toward getting to know them. But as I met with them, Jeff, both surveying over 2,000 of them and then meeting in focus groups, my mind changed. I began to grow in my empathy toward them, my understanding of them. And I do think they bring an incredible addition to the workplace. So that answers the question. I guess I'm saying the more time I spent with them, the more I like them. And the more I realize, they bring something different, and that's a good thing. I don't need another one of me. I need something new and fresh to help me as a leader. Yeah.
I think it's so true. I think of the analogy of the Avengers, if you've ever watched any of the movies. It's
Yeah,
like you don't have to like Incredible Hulk, but you definitely want him on your squad.
that's
He
true.
has a very unique talent that makes that team a pretty interesting dynamic, right?
That's a great analogy. In fact, let me
Yeah.
volley back with this. Early on in the book, I really try to separate this particular resource from others. I talk about something magic and tragic going on in this younger generation. And some of you listening are parents as well as employers, and you're going,
Hmm.
yeah, I see it in my house. So
Hmm.
here it is. Um, I call it the Peter Pan paradox, Jeff. And here's why I call it a paradox. We all remember the story of Peter Pan, right? Disney made a great movie about it 70 years ago, and it was a book and then a play. But Peter Pan was this whimsical character that flies into London. We're not quite sure how he can fly, but he does. He sprinkles pixie dust everywhere, and magical things happen. So something really good and magical happened. By the same token, the other side of the coin is Peter Pan wants to live in Neverland, which, if you remember, was a place no one ever has to grow up.
Hmm.
So here's the magic and tragic. I believe, as I look at the workplace today, the age of authority seems to be going down. Kids are coming in smart as a whip on AI and smart technology, monetizing TikTok and other things like that. But the age of maturity seems to be going up. So they come in with some authority that doesn't require a badge or a position, but then we see them and maybe socially and emotionally, they're not able to look me in the eye and have a conversation. And we want that. We need those soft skills. So you can see why that would be enough to go, this is too much work for me who is 48 or 58 or 68 years old. So I said, let me create something that helps us who are over 45 really, can I say this? Love on them and cheer them on and put tools in their hands so they can show us the way to the future. And I think they do have visibility on the future better than I do.
So good. Tim, can you reframe? I mean, we could probably stop the episode after that one point. The age of authority is can you repeat that?
Yeah. The age of authority is going down, meaning
Yeah.
they may be 21, not 41, before they
Yeah.
really got some natural know-how on some issues. The age of maturity, though, is going up, and that's just demonstrated. I started learning that, gosh, a decade ago when university deans were saying to me, 26 is the new 18. You know, we just can't see it in 18-year-olds. So I know my generation, I'm a baby boomer, just gets put off by that. We see too much wrong with that. But I just believe they bring stuff to us that we can't miss. I'll give you a story, Jeff.
Yeah.
Early in the book, I talk about Colin Webb. I met Colin Webb a number of years ago when he was in high school. He's a 20-something now. And Colin graduated, was a very smart student, so he got an invitation to go to MIT. So, wow, that's amazing.
That's impressive.
Yes, he graduates with honors. So he has a number of job offers when he's done with college. Colin decides to move to Detroit and work for one of the big three, General Motors. And he's put in the smart car division. And that was smart because he's very smart himself. Well, Jeff, within a few months, Colin, as a typical Gen Zer, starts seeing things that could be improved upon. They didn't ask for it, but he sees some things that they can, we can improve professional development over here. And this system over there, we can do that better. And how about this process right here? They're all really good ideas. But when Colin takes him to his midlife supervisor, he shuts him down. He tells Colin, you need to keep your nose to the grindstone. Just do the work I've asked you to do. I didn't ask you to think around here. Just do your work. Well, typically an employee might go, okay, sorry. But Colin said, yes, sir, but he wasn't done. So Colin grabs his laptop and emails the CEO of General Motors. True story. Mary Barra gets an email from this young guy, 22 years old, and Colin says, I've got some great ideas that can improve GM. And he shares them on the email. Mary writes him back and says, these are great ideas. Let me take them to my executive team. So she takes them to her executive team and they go, yeah, these really are great ideas. But as you can imagine, in a big company like GM, by the time those ideas make their way down the organizational chart. They get to the middle managers and the supervisors, and they get shut down. In fact, Colin was told at that point, you have to be around here 8 years before you can lead anything. Well, you can imagine how that just shut down this young guy. By a year or less than a year, Colin ended up leaving GM. They lost him. He's since then started 3 companies.
Wow.
In fact, he just sent me an email a few days ago on this new avatar robotic thing he started. He sold one of his companies, so he's doing very well financially. But I'm thinking, GM, you could have had this guy.
Wow.
We're so closed to new ideas from a young whippersnapper that it just didn't seem to make sense. So anyway, that's what I think is happening. Yeah.
You know, it makes me think. I do a workshop on the 5 authority types. What we know about leadership is it's about influence, not a title.
That's right.
And I talk about, out of the 5 authority types, there's 2 that carry the greatest influence, and it's reverent authority and expert authority. And when you talked about, you know, the maturity is coming up faster, it's making me think of this generation. You know, it's making me think of my own team and the people that are doing things that, if Brad wouldn't have showed up today, you and I wouldn't even be talking at all, Tim. So,
That's right.
like, there's just so many great ideas that are coming if we have the ears to hear them. Yeah. And I know your heart for Gen Z, but if you would, Tim, maybe talk to the hiring managers for a minute that are out there.
Yeah.
What is it that hiring managers and employers can't seem to overcome with this generation?
I think it's the assumption that obnoxious, cocky young man or woman, it's apparent cockiness. I think it's not always cockiness, but we just can't see, how could that young person know more than I do? Well, it's because you have experience in your workplace and other experience too, but they bring intuition on where the future's going. I need visibility on that at my age. So I've gotten so used to the way we've gotten things done that's familiar and comfortable, it may blind me to the very new way to do things. Here's another analogy. I remember in my generation, there was a guy named Steve Sasson, who in 1975, when he was 25, baby boomer, worked for Kodak. Remember Kodak?
Yeah.
They were into cameras and film and everything else. They were on the top of their game. In 1975, young Steve, at 25 years old, comes up with a digital camera. Never saw the light of day. Kodak goes, we'll buy that idea and patent it, blah, blah, blah. But they were thinking it's going to cannibalize all of our film and current cameras. So he didn't get to use it.
Wow.
And of course, you know the rest of the story. In the 90s, Kodak's still doing well, but I think they filed for bankruptcy this year. And I'm thinking, you didn't have to do that. But you see, they had, this is what we are doing. I think we have to be willing to cannibalize our current work for the future's sake. And that's hard to do. Yeah.
It is. I mean, times are shifting, and they're shifting faster than ever before. And I think that is a benefit of embracing the younger generations, is they're bringing cutting edge into the workplace.
Yeah.
But look, here comes the clash of, different personalities, different upbringings.
Yes.
And look, there's a lot of what I would define them as myths, fish tales, if you will, about Gen Z.
Yeah.
And I know what I'm hearing around the water cooler, but Tim, in your research, what are some of these common myths that you're hearing about Gen Z?
Yeah. Jeff, probably the biggest one I hear is that they don't want to work. And the reason we draw that conclusion is we take a quick look. And by the way, my definition for stereotypes is mental shortcuts. We take a quick look and we go, oh, they're leaving right at 5. Not a minute later, they don't even finish the task they're working on. They must not want to work.
Right.
So I began to bring this up in my focus groups with Gen Zers. And I would say, do you really not want to work? Is that true? And I had some of them say to me, and this took boldness on their part, because this is a guy that's older and got a doctorate and everything else, me. And I had a young gal out in LA say, Dr. Elmore, can I tell you why I leave right at 5? I said, sure. And she said, well, I leave right at 5 because I have to zip over to another job. I don't make enough money to pay my bills at this current job. And she said, once I finish that second job, I rush over to my mother I'm taking care of her. She has stage 4 cancer.
Wow.
And suddenly I realized she may be working harder than anybody else at that workplace, but
Right.
we don't know it. We assume leaving at 5 means she doesn't want to work. So I think we need to ask instead of tell or assume. Maybe that's a good ask instead of assume.
Wow.
And when we do, we're going to find out there are people like her that are working really hard, and they actually are good people, but they're different, and we don't want to do the work to connect with them, I think.
Amazing. That resonates with me in a big way, Tim, because that was me when I was the young generation. I had a leader that was so frustrated with me because I literally would run to get out of work. I was in route delivery. My numbers were adequate but not great, and I would run to get out of there. And he was always so offended. And he was like, "Why? What's the big rush to get out? If you just stuck around a little bit longer, you could make more commissions." And I'm like, I'm cutting grass in my neighborhood for my neighbors, and I have sick parents. Like, I got to get my work done and get out of here.
Yeah.
And then he showed me, this is where he differed maybe than some of the leaders today, of if I put a little more effort into the job that I had, the earning potential that would be there, and I would never have to cut grass again. Nice. I think there's a chasm that can be crossed there for sure.
Yes. I do too. And I just want to add, I think the answer's in the middle on so many of these issues.
Yeah.
There are Gen Zers that don't want to work hard. There's people in my generation that don't want to work hard.
Isn't that the truth?
Remember that. Yeah. So if we'll just connect and meet in the middle, that guy met you and said, I tell you what, you might not have to cut grass, blah, blah, blah. And he shares a little insight. I think that's what we need to do. So I always say you got to connect before you correct. That's just always a safe bet. Yeah.
I think you're spot on. I want to get your thoughts on one that I hear about Gen Z all the time. Okay. And I mean, I'm with senior leaders. I'm with the entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And I will tell you, Gen Zers, put it on mute for 1 second, but they're calling you all job hoppers.
Yeah, yeah.
Tim, are they job hoppers, or are we simply not doing our part to keep them in our organizations?
Yeah. I think both are true. They're job hoppers because we're not doing enough. So let me explain. I'm not just trying to defend them, listeners, but I am explaining them. So the average boomer stays on the job 8 years plus, Xers 6 years plus, the millennials stay 2.8, and then Gen Z 2.3 years. But here's what I think happens. They have been conditioned to want to control their time and money. And they've been conditioned for this because many of them started working a number of years ago when the pandemic started. They started in and were told to be loyal and stick around, and then they were promptly laid off. In fact, they were the first batch that was laid off at their little experience. So they're going, okay, Bob, you want me to stick around? You weren't loyal to me, and you want me to be loyal to you? So just know we've conditioned them. So I would say, many of them have joined the gig economy. And if you don't know what that is, folks, it's I'm doing a gig over here, a gig over there. I've got a gig here. But as an Uber driver, a pizza delivery guy, or whatever, they feel like they're controlling their time better. Wow. They stop Uber when they want to, right? And they control their money better. It may not be true, but they feel it's in their control. And for so many Gen Zers, Jeff, this might be helpful for listeners. They told me, I feel like a commodity when I'm at a workplace, like a larger established workplace. And I said, say more about that. And one Gen Zer, 23 or 24 years old, said, well, you know what a commodity is, right? You spend a little money and you've got this thing that you own. He said, I wish, this was so brilliant, I wish you'd stop treating me like a commodity and treat me like currency. Currency is something you invest. Commodity is something you buy and sell and get rid of later because it's wasted, it's done. They feel like they're just being used. But if I start treating my Gen Zers like, ooh, this is currency. There's something here. So Jeff, can I tell you another analogy? I know you like analogies. You're the king of analogies.
Love them.
So in the book, I talk about this true story of this woman in 2017 living up in New Hampshire, walked into a thrift store, and she was looking for an old picture frame that she could restore and maybe sell. She found an old frame. It was kind of distressed, and she thought, I'm not sure if this is worth much, but it's only $4. I'll go ahead and buy it. So she buys the picture frame. She gets it home to her friends and family. She shows it off and they go, well, the frame's nice enough. But one friend said, I think that painting is actually from a famous artist. And so she takes it to the local museum, and sure enough, it's an N.C. Wyeth painting. She auctioned it off and got $191,000.
Wow.
So think about this: spent $4, got 100. That's good ROI.
That's a great return.
I don't mean to sound cliche, but I wonder if we'll spend a little bit of money on a Gen Zer, but really see it's not the frame; it's what's inside the frame that makes it valuable. Now, who knows, you might have this great ROI that you never expected.
That's beautiful. And it has me thinking, we're talking about job hopping, and okay, that's true, but the employer, the leader has more work to do to keep them.
Yeah.
Part of that could be investing in a penny stock, right?
Yeah.
But I got to believe that this is, and I'm seeing this because sometimes I'll put, a need for something, and I'm seeing a lot of the Gen Zers that are on Upwork, which, all these different platforms because they're gigging.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a big shift in Gen Z saying, you know what, I'm going to start my own company, I'm going to be my own entrepreneur? Is there a bigger shift in this generation than prior?
Yes, no doubt. In fact, the numbers are very, very clear. 72% of current high school students in America, public high school students, 72% want to be an entrepreneur.
Wow.
So they've done enough on their smartphone, maybe on TikTok, where they monetized it. 1 out of 8 Gen Zers has monetized social media. And 20% of those who have, full-time job.
Wow.
6 digits. I wasn't making 6 digits in my 20s.
No.
So I'm thinking they're going, wow, I'd rather start something than join something, maybe. So they are doing that. And I can't blame them because they feel like, once again, I'm in control of my time and money better. Now, many are not going to make it, just like in all generations, many don't make it. But I think one answer, Jeff, might be, if you're leading an established organization, could you have an entrepreneurial zone in your company?
Yeah.
Where there's maybe a handful of people, maybe some Gen Zers, the creatives. You give them 1 or 2 problems that your company really needs to solve. And so you guys go after this. Just go after it. Pretend like you're in a startup. And then you set aside budget for the untold fruits of that group of entrepreneurial zone people. And I'm telling you, I think we'll keep them because established organizations feel more secure than a startup, but they feel like it's their startup. So I think those kinds of moves are a win-win. Everybody wins, and we get to keep them.
It has me thinking about employment branding because there's a lot of people listening, Tim, that they have open requisitions. They can't keep people. They're trying to attract more talent.
Yeah.
The old school way was like try to brainwash people into thinking they're going to be here until they retire. And if they left, it's like we're gangster and you're dead to me kind of feel. I'm almost wondering is like, do we rebrand this completely as, look, we're going to give you the tools and equip you that if you ever wanted to be an entrepreneur, look, if you spend 5 years here, you're going to have a great foundation. Now, look, at least we get to earn the right to keep them for year 6, 7, 8, or 15. But that could be a real draw on this generation that we're not so naive to think that this isn't really existing. Let's embrace it and let's talk about it, right?
I'm so glad you brought that up. I've got evidence for what you just said. So I have a lot of illustrations from retail and Fortune 500 companies, but Orange Leaf frozen yogurt, that's a franchise that's across the country. I don't know how big they are, but they've got different stores all over the country. They were noticing, as most quick service restaurants, that they were keeping people a year, maybe less. And it was that commodity thing. Well, you could imagine the boss, the manager was thinking, I'm not really motivated to pour into you. You're not here very long. But I love what Zig Ziglar taught us years ago. When somebody asked him, well, what if I pour into them and they leave? He said, yeah, but what if you don't and they stay?
Yes,
so that's not a good equation. So here's what Orange Leaf decided to do. They instructed their managers, I believe, at a meeting, treat Orange Leaf yogurt like the best first job they'll ever have. So they said, you're 16, 17, 21 years old. We know that you have dreams for your future. We'd like to get you ready for that dream job. So if let's say an 18-year-old comes in and says, I'd like to learn bookkeeping, they go, well, if you'll work over here with our bookkeeper, you can learn that. Or I'd like to learn customer service, or I'd like to learn this. So they would train them. And what they found out is, as they trained them for their dream job, they wanted to stay because they're getting mentored. It's a paradoxical thing. But isn't that true, Jeff? People pour into us. I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
I'm staying with you, Bob. So
That's right.
we got to trust.
Yeah. The loyalty, we're telling leaders, in essence, you're going to attract who you are, not what you want.
That's right.
And so it's like, let's live it out. I'll tell you another organization that comes to mind that does this well is Chick-fil-A.
Yes.
So much so that both of my kids had a mandatory minimum 1 year tour of duty at Chick-fil-A. And by the way, they got paid less than if they went up to the retail store, a block away. But the reason is I know if you work there, there's going to be things that you get there that you can't get anywhere else. And it transcended a paycheck for a 15, 16-year-old, right?
Yeah,
and that's leaning into the generation. And by the way, when they go off to college or do their thing, Chick-fil-A celebrates that. They post about it. This is one of our tribe. This is one of our people. Look how great they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that should be resonating with the hiring managers. I wanted to circle back, something that came up in one of the myths, and I think we touched on it, but I'd love to take a deeper dive. And this is, again, coming from some of the work I'm doing with senior leaders and entrepreneurs about these mental health issues. I'm seeing companies even talking about bringing in counselors and mental health experts on staff because it's become somewhat problematic. Yeah. What advice do you have for leaders as it relates to this mental health dynamic, or are they being misdiagnosed here?
Yeah, I think a little of both is happening. So I've done a truckload of research. In fact, have an entire chapter in the book on this issue because supervisors are being put off by, or off-put by, they seem to just call in and say, I'm not coming in today, personal health day. Jeff, my wife, Pam, was just in the Atlanta airport, and she was getting coffee, and she noticed there was one worker there waiting on a big line of people. So she'd take the order, make the coffee, go back to take the order, go back. And Pam goes, are you alone today? She goes, yeah, my two comrades both called in. They said, I was at a party last night. I'm not in a good shape to work today, and so they didn't come in. I don't like that. Right. I don't care who you are, 20 years old, 50 years old, that's not good. Right. So let's talk about the mental health thing. It is real. I'm here to tell you, I worked with 4 generations of young people. There's a greater mental health dilemma today than we have seen to date. In fact, one doctor said the average Gen Zer today experiences the same mental health issues as a psychiatric patient did in the 1950s.
Wow.
Think about that.
Wow.
So that's not good. So I would say this law I'm about to share with you is the law of reciprocal behavior. If you'll lean into them and acknowledge, yeah, I know that's a real struggle, and not make fun of it, but acknowledge it, they tend to lean into. If they think you don't have their back, they're going to even call out for more days because they're having to look out for number one. You follow me? Sure. So I think what I've learned to do, by the way, let me just confess, I'm a baby boomer. I've never had a mental I've been happy all my life. I don't think I'm a good case study for a normal human being. I am happy and ready to go, and yeah. But so I started to learn to lean in and do the ALEG thing, ALEG. Ask instead of tell them what they're doing is wrong. Listen. Does a little good to ask them if I'm not willing to listen. E is empathize. So I'm listening to Sean or Jessica or whatever say, I'm just struggling, and I'm going, I'm so sorry. That must be horrifying, or whatever, But if I'll ask and they feel valued, listen, they feel heard, empathize, they feel understood, I've won my right to letter G, guide them through this process. And I'll say something like, I want to give you as many PTO days as you're going to need. But as you can imagine, Jessica, we got to get the work done here. Would you have a recommendation? What would you do if help them see the bigger picture? And I've actually seen some step up and go, yeah, I see what you mean. This is not just about me. But if you lean into them and say, I promise I've got your back, I think they lean into you. At least that's been my experience. So I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Jeff. You've been around the block a few times.
I will say this, Tim. I am thinking less as a business and more as a parent as you're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a parent of Gen Z.
Yep,
And maybe you wrote a parenting book, right? This is like it's a challenge for sure. Because look, when you're leading Gen Z at home, this hits different because there's no real filters of emotional intelligence all the time. It's just like, I said, make your bed, right?
Yeah. Right.
But I think you're onto something, especially the E in a leg, which is the empathy piece of it. Man, empathy says, I've never been there before, but I'm trying to put myself in your shoes.
Yes.
Look, if you're leading Gen Z, we haven't had the same challenges as them. I mean, we could go down the list of the trauma, if you will.
We did have, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Like, there's some real challenges that come with that. And as such, come some mental health challenges probably that we're going to need to navigate. But I have a follow-up question to this, and obviously, being the author of the book Firm Feedback in a Fragile World, talk to us about this generation. And obviously, we're creating some healthy bias here. The lead. I don't think what you're saying, Tim, is like Gen Z doesn't need accountability. Just give them so much autonomy that nothing's off the table. Everybody needs some accountability.
Yes.
How do we find that balance between autonomy and this firm feedback?
Yeah. The first thing I think we're going to need to do is make a mental change ourselves. We'll ask them to change in just a little bit, but I always think the leader needs to lead the way in the change. So, Jeff, I love teaching leadership with imagery.
Oh, yeah.
So I have helped myself by saying, I need to stop being a referee and start being a quarterback. So I call this quarterbacks and referees. Have you ever noticed as you lead people, usually you start a venture or you start a company or you start whatever as a quarterback. You're taking the ball down the field, passing it off, scoring, you're inspiring the team. Everything's awesome, But have you noticed as you go on, you get tired?
Oh,
By the way, let me interrupt myself and say that this is a parenting journey too. When the kids are young, you're the quarterback. They turn teenagers. You're out of bounds. Get it, Todd. It's so true. We're throwing flags at them. So I would say I had to work to stay in quarterback mode, inspiring the team, handing the ball off, excited that they're going to score. And that's just a mental shift I have to make. And that handle, quarterback and referee, I do a little check on myself. Am I refereeing today right now with Melissa or whatever? Yeah, I am.
Sure.
So that would be one. Now, the other side of the coin, we're going to need to challenge them. I think many of them have had empathetic teachers or parents, perhaps, not all, but many. And so their answer has been, when they're stressed, to remove the stressor. And you and I both believe that is not the answer. The answer to hardship is not to remove the hardship. The answer is to get strong and face that hardship head on.
Rub dirt in it. Take a lap.
Give a statistic, yes. So you and I, we're kind of on the same cloth. So I would say once we've become that quarterback and we've led them in that way, we may want to challenge them to take some steps themselves. And in the book, I talk about a few. I'll give them to you in 1 minute. I think we need to talk about margins. Do they have enough margins in their life where there's space that's not noisy and cluttered? They're so busy and they're scrolling the phone often, not all the time, but often, 10,000 messages a day. That's just clutter and that is stressful. So I would say maybe be parental and say, do you have any margins in your typical day or week? Secondly is movement. Gen Z, and all generations for that matter, are very sedentary right now. We need to get up off our bottoms and move. So if it's a parent and a child, shoot hoops while you're doing the spelling test review, or take a walk while you're studying for history. Or if it's work, Jeff, we have a group of young employees that walk around our building like clockwork 3 times just to get moving. It's not rocket science, but we know I shouldn't be sitting all day. This is basic. And by the way, all these are free, aren't they? These are free
Oh, yeah.
ideas. You don't have to
Yeah.
spend a dime on it. Another one is mindfulness. Gen Z has been in a world where there is noise and clutter coming at them all the time. And I'm thinking if we could teach them to focus, forget multitasking, try monotasking. Focus and think on this. Sometimes mindfulness is just breathing and focusing on the one thing, maybe even focus on breathing. I'm not a psychotherapist right now, but it's been proven to show when we do this, our anxieties and stressors seem to subside and we're better off. The last letter M I'm going to give you is the word manage. Sometimes they just need to manage themselves better, raise their self-awareness and self-management a little bit, maybe see a counselor, maybe take some meds. I think meds ought to be the last resort, not the first resort, but maybe take medication. But anyway, I'm probably giving you a year's worth of content in 3 minutes.
So good.
Those are the kinds of things that bosses need to tend to. And here's why. One last thought. When I started my career, a typical boss would say, hey, leave your personal problems at the door. You come in here to get your work done. Today, bosses are forced to say, bring your whole selves to work today.
Right.
And that may be emotions and Lord knows what. So I'll stop there.
This dynamic of leave your emotions at the door and this transition to nothing's off the table, I would say has to be, if not the top, one of the biggest.
Yes.
And look, in the corporate world, I've seen it take leaders out. I'm talking 20, 30-year tenured people because they just can't make the shift. Yeah. Now, Tim, I know you wrote the book on it literally, but if there's a Gen Zer listening or somebody listening that loves a Gen Zer and they're about to enter the workforce, what's one piece of advice that you would want them to hear?
Wow. I would say my advice to you would be you've got to figure out how to navigate two pulls that are going on inside of you. I want to be me, and I want to belong. These are two pulls on every heart, particularly young people. So the I want to be me comes out as teenagers. Didn't we see it in every one of our teenagers? I want to be me. I want a nose ring. I want purple hair. I want, blah, blah, blah. And I'm stereotyping, but we've seen this. In fact, as teenagers, we're becoming our own self, and we want to be me. However, there is a social contract we have with all of humanity that says you need a community and you're going to need other people in your life. And if all you do is demand yourself to be yourself, you're not going to get much help, Josh. So, and by the way, I'm giving parenting advice.
Yes, you are.
To my own two kids, my daughter Bethany, I adore her. She had this I want to be me thing going on. I said, watch it, just be careful. And one time I said this to her and she didn't like it. You need me more than I need you. Right
wow.
Now. Isn't that true? Now, I love her, but she knew what I meant. She needs the roof overhead, the green
That's
beans.
right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think we need to, as managers and supervisors, as well as parents, we need to say, just bring that topic up and talk about it. Because you'll know what to say if they go, well, I want to be myself. Well, if you're a hermit, that's fine. But I don't think you're a hermit. So I'll stop.
No, it's so good because you're absolutely right. And I'm talking again as a parent of Gen Z. I'm not going to say which child it was for the sake of their dignity.
I already know.
But I'm like, I had to address an identity issue at one point.
Yes.
And the dust settles, and I probably went a little too aggressive because these young people. And we get to our bedroom, and my wife, Janelle, says, you had a mullet in high school. You had a mullet haircut, and you're going to talk to them about this? And I'm like, oh, my gosh, I sure did. I mean, hey, if you have a mullet out there, I still love you. But, I mean...
we lose all rights to correct anybody else.
Exactly. Tim, this is... absolutely amazing. And what a forward by John Maxwell in this one.
Yeah, he was very kind. John and I talked. We had a vacation together. We talked about this book when I was writing it. And John, at 78, a little frustrated himself, but he does believe in people. If nothing else, John believes in people.
Yes,
but
he does.
we had to talk, and I said, John, I know they're different, but they're the future. We don't know much about the future, but we know one thing. Gen Z is going to be there. So it
Yes.
was so good to see, him even just become a believer in this very, very different generation that will one day lead us when we're in wheelchairs
That's right.
in the nursing home. So
I think the leaders that embrace this are going to have the biggest competitive advantage as well. I truly do believe that. Tim, this is tremendous. You're a gift. I'm grateful for the work that you do to equip leaders to make big impact. Tell the listener, how do we get a copy of this book that's coming out in November, and how do they contact you for additional resources?
sure. Thanks, Jeff, for asking that.
Yeah.
Well, the quickest way, if you want to just grab a copy, it's available now. It's the book is called The Future Begins with Z, so that's the website, thefuturebeginswithz.com, thefuturebeginswithz.com. And if you order now, you get bonus content and lots of other extras for free. But eventually you can get it on Amazon, anywhere books are sold. And I really do want this to be a resource guide for folks. TimElmore.com is my website. You can ask questions or download free stuff there too. But Jeff, do we have a minute for me to share a quick story that is my inspiration every day when it comes to Gen Z?
I would love it.
Would that be okay? Okay.
Absolutely.
So I do share this in the book if somebody wants to grab it and use it. But when I was a kid, people believed in me. And maybe, Jeff, your advice earlier is what we need to do. Let's remember back in our mullet days or our growing up days, we were knuckleheads one day.
Oh.
So that just helps. But back in the 1960s, the United States did something we had never done before. We put a man on the moon. July of 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin both walked out on the moon. The story behind this story is gripping to me. When JFK, our president, made two speeches in 1961 and 62 that we were going to put a man on the moon, the NASA space program did not even have the technology to do such a thing. So they were way behind the 8 ball. But here the president said, we're going to do it. So they kicked things into gear. Employees that worked there said, man, I felt like a piece of furniture until JFK made that announcement, and we're all in motion. Well, what happened was NASA had to get a whole bunch of new technology that these 58-year-old operators did not know how to use. Does this sound familiar?
Oh, my.
So they had these young interns from MIT and Purdue and Georgia Tech and Louisiana Tech. So they start bringing these young 20-somethings, and they said, can you explain this? And he explained that. And they started finding that these former interns and interns were so useful. So get this, a switcheroo took place in the 1960s. The older generations there, which had been in charge, became sim soups, simulator supervisors. They became mentors and coaches for the young 20-somethings who took over operations to put Neil Armstrong on the moon. And Jeff, you and I've talked about this before. The average age of the operators, 27 years old.
Unbelievable.
I would have sworn it was 57 years old.
All the tenure, all the experience.
Yeah. In fact, the guy that had actually said go, not no, to land the capsule, Jack Garman, 23 years old, 1 year out of college. So hear me, listeners. They trusted those young men. They trusted them. And they became mentors for those young men. And I'm telling you, this is the only way forward, is if we figure this out and we get off our high horse, and we need to swallow our pride and say, I need to coach this next gen. And then you're going to find it's going to be reverse mentoring. You're going to coach them, they're going to coach you, and we're all going to win. So that's my parting thought there.
I mean, if this works to do the unthinkable of putting a man on the moon, what could it do for our industries? Yeah. What could it do for our innovation, our R&D, how we go about taking market share from competition, name it. We got to lean into this, no question about it. Simply amazing, Tim. Tim, I know this is off script, but before we close, something very near and dear to my heart is your mentorship of my life and how you've introduced me to getting my heart and my passion into a book. Yeah. And I know that there's people listening that were me 2 years ago that had a book in their heart, and they needed to get it out. You have an amazing event called A Book in a Weekend that I was a benefactor of. Can you give a quick 90-second, 2-minute plug on what that is and how people can learn more?
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. You are the model author. You really are. I mean that. I'm
Thank
not
you.
blowing smoke here. So, listeners, if you're an aspiring author, you feel like there's something inside you, but we're not quite sure about the publishing industry or how to write it, there's something called a book in a weekend that we host, and it does begin a coaching journey with a weekend, a 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And the next one is February 27th to March 1st, and it's in Atlanta. But Jeff, as you know, what we do is we bring in best-selling authors and coaches and editors and ghostwriters and so forth and so on. And we set up those who attend, and it's a small group, to pitch their book on Sunday morning to a Shark Tank. So we have 3 publishers in the room coming up: Forbes Publishing, Maxwell Leadership Publishing, which did your book, Jeff, South by Southwest, Entrepreneur Magazine publishers. So it's crazy. It's really good. But people get to pitch their book, and at least one person in the room is going to get a book deal. And Jeff, you won that very first book deal back in 2024, and your book has done well. Best-selling, USA Today, Amazon. It's been such a fun joy. So folks, bottom line, if you'd love to explore it, you can go to the site and just check it out. abookinAweekend.com is how to find us.
Yeah, and I would say this. Obviously, I won, and I'm grateful for that. But I would say even if I wouldn't have won, the 10 months of group coaching and the experts that are coming in, extremely valuable. Make sure that you contact Tim, or maybe if you're a longtime listener, message us or email us, info@jeffhancher.com. I'd be happy to share my experience on the book in a weekend. Tim, we're grateful for you, my friend.
Back at you.
Dr. Tim Elmore, everybody. This is, you're a gift, my friend. Tim, thank you for not only sharing your insights, but for dedicating your life to equipping leaders and organizations to see the potential in the next generation. Your work continues to remind us that Gen Z is not a problem to solve, but I think it's something to cultivate. And I hope that's the message that we all got with this today. And to the listener, listen, here's the challenge I have for you. Don't wait for tomorrow to get an understanding of the future that's coming. Gen Z is here. They are here, and like Tim mentioned earlier, they're going to be in the future. They're your employees. They're your customers. They're your students, perhaps, even your own kids like me. The question is, will you keep leading with yesterday's mindset, or will you step into tomorrow by investing in the leaders that are today? Until next week, remember, the future certainly begins with Z, and the future begins with how you choose to lead them. Keep leading well, and keep turning that pressure into potential.
The Champion Forum Podcast with Jeff Hancher. Lead, inspire, win.